Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. I'm Jenny, I'm from the Apps Business Development team for Google Play. I manage health and fitness partners as part of my role. And as well as that, I also look after some lifestyle partners. So even if you're not actually a health and fitness developer, I'm sure there'll be something useful for you within this presentation. So what I'm going to do today is just talk through some best practices for health and fitness apps. As I mentioned, they're quite broad best practices that will be useful for partners or for developers across all of the different categories. As part of our team, on the business development team, we work closely with some of the best developers, such as Runtastic, Strava, and so on. And so by working with those partners, we do have a lot of best practices that we've learned along the way. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. So yeah, as I say, many of these best practices will apply to other categories as well. So just keep on looking. So the first section that I want to talk about today is design. So material design, as I'm sure most of you will know, is a comprehensive guide for visual, motion, and interaction design across platforms and devices. And it makes it easy to really create a familiar interface that users can easily understand. So thanks to material design as well. 1 second. Let me just go back. So there's 4 principles to Go material. The first one is tangible surfaces. The second one, meaningful and delightful motion. So making sure when you are interacting and creating motion within your app, it makes sense to the user and helps them achieve what it is that you want them to do. Bold and beautiful aesthetic. So I'll show you a couple of examples in a moment of partners that have used material design to really express their brand. And lastly, adaptive design as well. So by adaptive design, we obviously mean not just across phones, but across Android Wear, across TV, and across all platforms. So the first case study is Fabulous. They adopted material design to improve their app. For example, using shadows and tangible surfaces to help focus users' attention within the app. What they actually found as a result was a 100% increase in retention after adopting material design. I highly recommend you take a look at the app. It's one of our, really great examples of material design, and as I'm sure you can see here, they really make great use of motion and color. So I mentioned before, one thing that you can really do with material design is create that bold and beautiful aesthetic. And LifeSum, one of our top health and fitness partners, they actually said that, as you can see here, the classic design and unified experience of material design really provides them with a strong foundation to build their brand. So the next area that I want to talk about is development. So above all, what you should do is focus on building a high-quality app. A high-quality app will actually help lend itself to higher ratings, which really does improve your chances of visibility on the Play Store, and also improve your chances of users who land on your listing page to actually then go on to install. And when we talk about quality, what does that exactly mean? So as you can see from these 4 sections here, first of all, your app needs to meet real needs that your users have and give them an experience that they love. Second, it needs to look great. It needs to feel easy to use. And third, you don't want your app to crash or waste battery or data. Finally, you want your app to stand out by using the latest Android features. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of those examples as well later on. So the first thing to think about with a health and fitness app is permissions. Since Android M, so Android Marshmallow, what we allowed was partners to only request permissions at runtime. This means that when you ask for permissions such as camera or such as access to their activity history, it makes sense and you're more likely to gain their trust. Requesting permissions at runtime streamlines the app install process as well. So as you can see before Android Marshmallow, every single permission that a developer would need to access was all presented at once, which can be a little bit scary, a little bit intimidating to brand new users who haven't even yet installed or tried your app. So I would definitely recommend making sure that your permissions are only requested at runtime when you actually need them to be used. So another big issue for health and fitness apps is battery life. Obviously, a lot of health and fitness apps are trying to track background data, trying to track GPS, for example, as well, and that can be a real drain on battery. So there's two things that we can suggest to make it easier on your users. So the first one is to make use of app standby. This restricts activity for inactive apps, which obviously helps battery life. And secondly as well, doze. This also restricts activity for all apps when a device is stationary. So I mentioned before, a high-rated app is crucial, and it's a really great signifier to new users of high quality. So again, ratings are one of your top ways that you'll market your app to other people. They'll also help you understand what users love and hate about your product and how their sentiment is changing over time. So you might have seen at I/O, we did announce a lot of new analytical tools within Developer Console. So now what we can do is actually group together different reviews based on topics, and you can start to get a feel for, is usability a big problem? Are you getting lots of negative ratings related to that topic? And what you can then do is obviously take action on that. Another example that I see with quite a few of my partners is stability as a topic. It's probably no surprise that a lot of reviews related to stability are often quite negative, and so that's another great way to track how your app is building in quality over time, as you can obviously track the number of reviews related to that topic. Another feature that we have is actually the ability to reply to user reviews. So I would highly recommend, if you have an app on Developer Console, take a look at your reviews, respond, even if you haven't yet been able to implement the fix that the user is requesting. What we'll often see is actually, once you've responded to a user review, if you have given some form of feedback or even just try to understand that you feel their pain, they'll often change the rating to a higher rating, which of course impacts your overall average rating. And again, the replying to user reviews is really one of the best ways to create meaningful connections with your users. And it shows you that you really listen to their feedback, and it helps you improve your product. So let's move on to testing. So coming from Google, we're all about testing. We're all about iteration. We have lots of really great tools now for developers within Developer Console and also across Firebase as well that I'll talk to you a little bit about. Testing is really crucial. So that can be whether you're launching a brand new app or even just an app release or just an app update. Our successful developers already know this, and actually 60% of the top 1,000 apps on Google Play are running a beta test right now. So here's an example of a partner such as Nike Plus. They made use of our beta testing. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have different types of testing tools. So we have alpha tests, open betas. So an open beta is where on the Google Play Store, you can actually, from the listing page, opt in to access the beta version of the app. Closed beta, if you want to restrict it to maybe just people within your team or people within a particular country. And also pre-launch report. So pre-launch report is pretty crucial, and this is actually a free option for all alpha and beta APKs. Then we move on to stage rollout. So with stage rollout, you can decide if you only want to launch to 5%, 10%, 20% of users. And if you see any problems, then you can immediately halt it. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about as well was the full release. So a feature that we have, which can be quite useful, especially if you're launching a brand new app, is the idea of being able to actually time that publishing. So I mentioned briefly pre-launch report. As I mentioned before, it's a free report for each beta APK that you upload within Developer Console. With the pre-launch report, it's essentially testing your beta APK across lots of physical, real devices within a lab. And that way, you're preempting any problems before they actually reach the user. And as you can see with Sweat with Kyla, so they're one of our new partners on Google Play. What they've seen here is the segmented release really helped to decrease their overall crash rating. And of course, anything you can do to prevent crashes and bugs actually being seen by real users is a good thing. So talking about testing, there's obviously some types of tests where you don't even need to code for. So store listing experiments, that's an option within the Developer Console. What you can do without any code, just A/B test your app icon, your screenshots, your product description. And one thing we've seen with Runkeeper, they actually saw a 6% increase in conversions using these store listing experiments. I should also mention as well that if you're really considering growing your app in other markets, you can also localize these store listing experiments for up to 5 markets and start to get those learnings across, for example, all of Western Europe, with the localized assets. So here's an example of a partner, Clue, Women's Health app. What they actually did, they first of all started on one test, which was just text size. And then they saw by having a larger text, they actually got an 8% increase in install conversion rate. So essentially, 8% more users who landed on their listing page then went on to install their app. And another really quite surprising one as well, they actually A/B tested the color of the devices within their screenshots. So a black device versus a white device actually yielded a 12.5% increase in install conversion rates. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, being able to run different variants for different locales and languages is super crucial because not all users will be the same across different languages. So we've talked about design, developing, testing. The next thing I want to talk about is engagement and re-engagement. So again, I think a few years ago, everyone really cared a lot more about just getting new users through the door, but it's become very obvious now that that's not the main thing. What you have to do is thinking about how you have a product that actually engages and retains your users, because that's where you'll actually get the best outcomes. And again, it's the economical thing to do to retain users rather than just continue to get new users through a leaky funnel. From a developer perspective as well, it's the proof that your product actually works. And so given this importance, let's deep dive into some engagement best practices. Okay, so let's imagine your users now downloaded your app, and it's time to make sure they actually know how to use it and keep on using it. So first of all, I would say with the onboarding flow, there's no one-size-fits-all. For some health and fitness apps with a very clear use case, you don't actually need to have too many skippable windows. It's very clear what the user needs to do in order to use the app. That being said, here are some suggestions we have based on our broad learnings from all of our partners. So, for example, using the idea of a tutorial, make it skippable, focus on the value, make it fun, and also continue to test and iterate for the best day 1 and day 7 retention. So registration or sign up and sign in. Again, you need to make sure you're really explaining to the user why should they come in and sign up to your product. There's obviously a bit of friction there, so you need to make sure you're really well explaining to the user why they need to sign in, why they need to sign up. It could be that that's the best way to track historical data so they can start improving and progressing within your app. The key thing is just make sure they're aware of what they get in return. And the other thing I should mention is for registration, ideally try to make the login optional. But of course, as I said before, really make it clear to the user why they would need to log in. And one of the reasons for that could be some of the social aspects to actually make the product even more useful for them. So, personalization. I'm sure all of you realize that having a personalized product that's really tailored to the user needs is crucial. And it can start straight away from the onboarding. If you have some basic information about their app, then what you can do, such as Freeletics, is actually personalize the onboarding for a health and fitness app as well. If there's maybe a particular type of activity that you believe one gender or one demographic might value more, you can actually do what Freeletics did and actually personalize their onboarding based on that information. From the personalization that they did within the onboarding experience, as you can see, they actually increased weekly active sessions by about 58%. So it really does work. Okay, so Smart Lock. Whether your user is coming from another platform, a previous device, or is brand new to your app, Google Smart Lock is one solution to really make it easier for them to sign in and sign up in a frictionless way. With Komoot, they're one of our top health and fitness partners as well. They actually saw a 19% increase in sign-up conversion when A/B testing Smart Lock. And feel free to ask any questions along the way or afterwards if you want to know more about this. The other crucial thing here, if your app, if part of your company, you also have a website that you want people to sign in and sign up to, SmartLock actually tracks the user's credentials between Google Chrome and Android. So if you can imagine you have maybe a user who's signed in for the web first, they've got used to that service. When they come to the Android app, you'll be able to actually track that data, who that person is, and automatically sign them in. So again, a very seamless experience. So we talked about personalization within onboarding, but there's also the importance of personalizing the content. And again, it's a no-brainer. The more tailored the content is, the better engagement rate you're going to get. So with Skimble, what they did was they actually personalized their training dashboard and increased new user workout engagement rates by about 30%. So I just want to take a moment here. When we're talking about smarter experiences, it's really moving on from the idea that an app is just a static bookmark on a screen. We really want to see more health and fitness partners find ways to make your app more of a smart companion for your life. And again, smart experience are contextual, personalized, and really anticipate user needs using data before the user may even know that they need to do something. So, as I say, the best health and fitness apps are assistive, and they don't really require huge amounts of manual tracking from the user. So, as you can see here, this is one example of a partner called Trulia. So they're a US-based real estate app. I just wanted to use this example because what they were able to do using the awareness API is understand the local weather of a particular user. And so what they did was they tailored a push notification for sunny days saying, why don't you go to an open house? It's a lovely afternoon. It's near to you. And again, that's just one example of how you can really make use of the user context to surface something that is relevant to them. So Google Fit API. The Google Fit API is not just about being able to read other apps' data, but also to be able to write your own data. And you know, with the Google Fit platform, it really helps give developers a more holistic view of a user's health. And again, this in turn helps developers offer more timely and relevant insights. So one example I love to mention is, let's say, for example, LifeSum, with the Google Fit API, they can work out if a user, even if it's been tracked via different apps such as Nike Plus, let's say someone's done a lot of weight training, they've just finished, that's been tracked via Google Fit, they can actually maybe preempt that or, and actually offer a suggestion that could help that user. So as this example is, make sure to eat a high-protein meal after your weightlifting session. Again, this is just the beginning of what you can do with Google Fit data. And it's really helpful because so many different partners, you can't all be expected to track all the same data. With Google Fit, you can make use of the user's activity across all different apps and really help to make a more personalized and curated experience for them. So another part of re-engagement is rich notifications. And I really want to call out here, it sounds super obvious, but don't treat all users the same with push notifications. Fabulous actually use Firebase as a notifications tool. And what they're doing is pushing in-app behavioral intervention instructions to their users. Again, we can't emphasize the importance enough of testing. Testing, whether it's the messaging or the different segments that you're targeting these push notifications to, is super crucial. Okay, so I talked a little bit about how it's important to move away from the idea that app is just a static bookmark on a screen and more of a smart companion to someone's life. So I'll give you an example of Instant. So Instant, it works seamlessly in the background, tracking data about the user's activity on their phone without them having to actually track anything themselves. And with this information, they have an instant coach feature, which then offers actionable insights based on this, which helps facilitate positive behavior change. So moving on to the idea of how to motivate users in the right way. So it obviously depends on what type of app you have, but for a health and fitness app, social is normally the critical layer, and that's not just because you want to maybe have a leaderboard seeing how well you're doing compared to your friends. It's also crucial because often you'll need your friends' help and feedback to keep you on the right track. So with the Strava example, I'll give you some examples of how they really leverage the idea of social. So again, the idea of sharing, if a user creates their own generated routes, they can actually share that with the entire Strava community. If you have completed, for example, a half marathon, your friends can then give you kudos, and that really helps with that motivation, and it probably or hopefully inspires more people to run more often and make more use of their app. So the idea of within the social feed as well, seeing if all of your friends are running on a regular basis. Maybe you haven't ran for a while, as an example. This will obviously help potentially inspire a bit of peer pressure in you to get out there, put your trainers on, and go for a jog. And you might have heard about King of the Mountain and personal records as well. That's another way of just trying to inspire that element of competitiveness. So moving on, when it makes sense, adding game elements such as leaderboards can really bring a real sense of competition and achievement to your users. So as you can see here, another thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of gamification, using potentially some kind of narrative. So with this example with Runtastic, what they've actually seen drive a significant amount of their premium subscriptions is their new story running feature. So that is essentially immersing the user while they're going for a jog into a narrative, fictional narrative, but it gives them that extra motivation to get out of the house, go for a jog, and immerse themselves in a different world. So, as part of engagement, it's not just about your mobile phone, it's also about smartwatches. And this is a really great example. So Hole19, they're a golfing app. You might have seen with Android Wear, you can actually take data and put it into a watch face using Android Wear Complication API. And what Hole19 have done is surface data on watch faces such as handicap or the number of days since the user's last game of golf. And again, that means that they're always there on the watch face to inspire that next game of golf for the next weekend. What they've seen from actually implementing the Wear Complications API is they've seen their user base double in about 6 months after their Wear implementation. So I think they've really cracked on to a great use case. I think health and fitness apps in general, there's so many more examples of how you can do this. And I'd really recommend taking a look at the Android Wear Complications because it's a very quick and easy first step of moving on to the Android Wear platform without having to commit to creating an entire brand new standalone app. So speaking of standalone apps, you might have seen with Android Wear 2.0 that for the first time, you'll be able to actually go for a jog, leave your phone at home, and still be able to track your activity. The great thing about this as well is it's a really crucial and great opportunity for fitness apps. As I say, you can leave your phone at home, connect with cellular, and still track your run and listen to music because with many smartwatches, you can actually save music to your watch as well. So we've talked about Android Wear. Let's move on now to Android TV and Chromecast. So with the Google Cast SDK, you can actually extend your website, your Android app, and your iOS app to the TV for the first time. Partners who've implemented this SDK really have seen great user satisfaction. For example, one partner with Cast has actually reported that Chromecast users perform over 30% better than average compared to other users based on their engagement metrics. So I think, especially if you're working on a fitness app that is based on particular exercise routines, this is a really great way to extend the use case to your users. So let's now discuss how to actually grow your user base. One of the tools that we have within Google is Firebase App Invites. This is a really great way to get more users to your app. One study showed that over half of all installs are actually driven from word of mouth. So getting as many of your existing engaged users as possible to share with their friends will obviously help boost the number of users within your app itself. So with Firebase App Invites, you can actually create personalized SMS text or email. With the Firebase App Invites, you can pull all of their SMS contacts, all of their email contacts, and make it much easier for them to refer those friends to your app. The great thing about this as well, if you've utilized Firebase Dynamic Links, let's say, for example, there's one particular section of your app that's very share-worthy. What will happen is when that second user who's been invited installs your app, rather than go straight to the sort of home screen, they'll be directed to the section of the app that their friend actually wanted to share with them. So we've seen that's had a really great impact. And again, with Fabulous, you can actually see 10% higher installation rate and a 28% higher acceptance rate as well. So some really good metrics there. So obviously, we're here as Google. We're going to talk a little bit about Google Search. And app indexing is a really great way to make sure that regardless of whether it's users who've not installed your app, who have installed your app, maybe they've installed your app and haven't actually gone back into it for a while. With Firebase app indexing, let's say the user has your app installed, they can actually launch your app directly from Google Search, depending on what they searched for. As well as that, let's say they haven't used your app for a while, but they're searching for something on Google Search. Because they still have your app installed, your app will then pull in, depending on the keyword that they're looking for, and again, help inspire more re-engagement. If the user hasn't yet actually installed your app, what they'll see is an option to install. And again, that's another great way to drive more users to your product. So, universal app campaigns. It's the great thing about universal app campaigns is that you can also, for the first time, help trying to optimize your visibility for different place search queries. So with universal app campaigns, they're deployed across multiple inventory sources, as you can see here. So Google Play, YouTube, search, and the web as well. And it's quite easy to do. You don't actually have to do too much. We'll take all of your Google Play assets and create the campaign on your behalf. And again, we have a variety of different ads that surface across several formats and networks. So moving on to earn. The majority of health and fitness apps are freemium from what we've seen within Google Play, and a very popular business model, which is obviously subscriptions. So let's talk a bit more about how to actually grow revenue from those users once they're within your app. So more and more users are getting used to paying for digital content. And again, the average quality of Android apps is increasing leaps and bounds, which makes people more willing to pay that content as well. So here's a few examples of increases that partners have seen by moving to a subscription business model. So with Boozoo, which is a language learning app, they actually increased their average revenue per user by 86% using subscriptions. As you can see, New York Times, over 125% increase in subscription conversion when they implemented in-app billing subscriptions. So obviously, there's different parts of the conversion funnel when you have a subscription app. So once you've got your users in, we have different tools to help with subscriber conversion. One that I really wanted to call out today was introductory pricing. It's a new feature that we launched just about 2 weeks ago, I believe. And again, with introductory pricing, what you can do is offer a discounted price for the first month, just to help reduce that barrier to entry. And then for subsequent months, it will go back to full price. Conversion analytics, so within Developer Console, we have a lot of different user acquisition reports. And as well as that, you can then start to really track where the drop-off is from buyers to repeat buyers and so on. So once you've actually converted your subscribers, you want to retain them. And I just want to talk through 3 different options that you can utilize to make sure that you're reducing that subscription churn and increasing retention. So the first one is subscription grace periods. So a grace period can be given to subscribers when their payment has declined, especially if they're on an annual subscription and perhaps their credit card has expired. With grace periods, what you can do is you can give them a set time, whether it's 3 days or 7 days, to update their form of payment, add it to the file, and while doing that, also making sure that you're not completely shutting off their subscription. So essentially, you're giving them a few days just to get some time to update their form of payment. Goodwill credits. So goodwill credits allow you to offer subscribers free access to content for a limited time. It could be you're offering them a free 1-month subscription or even an annual subscription. The reason why they're called goodwill credits is because we see a lot of partners use them in case of a particular promotion, or let's say, for example, you have users who've had a bad customer experience and you want to kind of appease them in some way. Goodwill credits allows you to give them some free content and help just sweeten things a little bit. Lastly, there's the upgrade and downgrade API, and this enables users to change their subscription product quite easily. reducing the chance of churn. So let's say, for example, they have an annual membership and they're not so sure if they want to continue with annual. They might want to move down to monthly or to quarterly. The upgrade and downgrade API allows for that. So that was everything I had to talk to you today with best practices for health and fitness apps. I'd love to hear if you have any questions about any of the products or suggestions raised today. So please do reach out to me if you have questions. Anyone here? Cool. Thank you so much.